beautiful souls. This is the Learn Through Loving podcast. I'm the host, LT. This is actually going to be the very first episode of this podcast. So I wanted to take some time and I guess introduce myself. I know a lot of people had said that it would probably be good to do this as the first sort of episode. What I plan to be doing is mostly doing interviews with various people, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So if that's what you want to hear more of, you can go to some of the other episodes where I should be interviewing different people I find inspiring or see what they have to offer. But this first one, for anyone that's looking to take this journey along with me, I figured it'd be a good idea for you to get to know me, right? For you to kind of know where I came from in this journey of self-discovery and what my past looked like, and see if there's anywhere you relate, or if anything, you get to know a little bit more about my perspective. I want to start by just telling you a little about the name Learn Through Loving. It's been kind of a mantra that I've been following for the last several years. Something, I don't use the word truth very often, but one of the truths I've found about life is the more that I learn to love myself, the better I can love other people. And the more that I learn to love other people, the better I can love myself. So it all came together, with this name. And that's something very fundamental. And I think that I get so much out of. Again, I've been kind of working on myself, or trying to get to this point. It's been over a decade that I've really been trying to do something better, do something more positive for myself. And I'll kind of let you know about that, let you know how I got to this point, and then let you know a little bit more about what I'm trying to do. So a good place to start is I grew up actually in Phoenix, Arizona. Was born and raised there. I was an only child. I know a lot of people end up saying, my childhood was pretty normal. I don't even know what that means, right? I like to question the idea of what normal means because I think we all have very unique experiences. My parents did provide for me in the ways that they could. Never went wanting for food. Felt safe at home, right? They had their shortcomings and things that I didn't find out till later, right? But all in all, that was kind of the start, right? I had, I believe that we all have this kind of hole in our soul, right? This void that needs to be filled, and I found the way to fill that at first was just by hanging out with friends. Like I could put on different masks and be friends with every single person, right? I'm fairly social. I think we're all social creatures, but that comes out in different ways. And I liked fitting in with everything and everyone. Once I got to about junior high, some different things opened up. I actually, started meeting different people, getting new perspectives. First traumatic sort of experience I'd say I had was one of my best friends. He killed himself, right? This happened in 8th grade. And I remember thinking at the time, like I didn't have anybody to talk to because I never really felt heard at home, right? And I never was myself around other people. So this was kind of a thing where I was actually happy for him. I talked with them every day, and we talked about how much we, I don't know, disliked our life. By this time, I had been, really into playing video games and watching porn, right? Like since 10 years old. That was like what my life consisted of, because I never felt, or I never was, even told that I should be myself, or even what myself was, right? It was kind of just, you figure it out. And so I did, and this other person was someone I grew very close to, and I felt like I could tell them, about how I was feeling, and they didn't judge me, and they didn't use it against me, and it was kind of safe. And when he left, I didn't know what to do with that, and I didn't couldn't trust anybody else. And so what I did is I went inward, right? And for the next several years, I was really into reading, Friedrich Nietzsche, nihilism books. Self harm became a thing, in my repertoire, along with, porn and video games and just kind of existing, right? I didn't care about school. I did well because I'm you know, not that's I'm not I wouldn't consider myself smart, but I could get through schoolwork, right? And so I just kind of got by, and I never really felt too happy, but I didn't let myself feel sad either. And I, went through life that way, and that's what I thought everyone was doing, you know. Um, Continuing forward, I finally, I kind of mentioned, I think that, addiction was a part of my story. So around 17, the end of high school, alcohol becomes accessible, and I start drinking. And that's where I find like a real chance to, well, how I felt was being myself, right? I could get blackout drunk and I could say whatever the fuck I wanted to say, whatever was going on in here, and no one used it against me. And they were just like, dude, you got fucked up last night, and you never talked about what someone said the night before, right? Because they weren't the same person, they weren't in the same mindset. And so I felt free to do that. And also, along with it, I wasn't aware, obviously, at that time, that was the thing. I just knew I felt comfortable. I was also the dude that got naked at parties, and not in a promiscuous way. I was kind of the really pale white kid that was hairy and ran around parties naked. And I thought it was fun. I wanted stories. I wanted people to remember me. And so I did that. And you know, I went from there blackout drinking to, eventually I met a girl, and she wasn't too keen on the whole me getting naked at parties thing. So what I did is I just stopped, right? And at that period in my life, I think it was about 18, it wasn't too big of a deal, right? It wasn't a daily thing I was doing yet. Um, and yeah, I quit, and that relationship, introduced me to a lot of life. It was probably one of the most toxic relationships I was in towards the end. There was um, all forms of abuse coming at me, that you could think of. And then there was also, you know, it was just toxic. Just whatever you picture a toxic relationship being, it was that. And, but I was committed, right? Because I grew up in this very weird Christian household, and was told that, you're committed to the person that you're with. And so, I was cheated on. I was, all these different things. And eventually she left for the military. And that was very much needed at that time, I think, for both of us. I ended up, I was about 20 years old. I moved back home, and I had just lost the job that I had of 4 years, and I lost my apartment, and I had to go back to my parents, and I was like just fucking over. I felt like a failure, right? And little did I know I'd have to probably do that a few more times. But I got back there, and then, I got my wisdom teeth out, and then I found Percocets. And for those of you that have a past, or, maybe relatives in the past, history of addiction, you know where that goes. That leads to heroin, that leads to, a whole world of drug use and everything. At least that's what it did for me. So, yeah, so for the next 4 years, I spent my time, as they'd say in the rooms, running and gunning, doing what I had to do. I actually, during that time, ended up finding a great job. I found out I was good at sales. Um, and I got a promotion while I was on heroin. And I was like, dude, my life's going pretty solid, right? And I was able to, again, put these masks on, right? I was again able to not look at myself. I was able to just mask the pain and everything I was feeling. And uh, there's a scene from Fight Club that really resonates with me, that, I got this job, and my parents were like, all right, go get a house. So I got a house, and then they were like, go get a car, get your own car. And I got one. And then they were like, I don't know, like, find a girl. And I was like, dude, fuck that. Like, not that, not that I ended up being open to that. I ended up finding, someone, but I wasn't looking to get married. I wasn't looking to settle down. I wanted to spend the thousands of dollars I was making on drugs for me and my friends, and it was a party literally every day, for multiple years. But like everything, consequences catch up, and I suddenly, went from having this, sweet gig to not being able to keep a job for more than a couple weeks. I went from having these people, these friends, my family supporting me to being homeless. Um, to the point where even my family said that I wasn't welcome home unless I, went to treatment, which I'd tried multiple times, right? Um, and I tried sober living. The most during that time I ever had sober was 60 days. And eventually I started getting legal consequences, and I did all the things that I had to do. And finally my mom gets a call one night, and I tell her, so, I went to jail, my car got repoed, I'm ready to go to treatment again if you'll take me. And I don't even remember her getting mad. I don't remember my parents getting mad. They just asked me where I was at. I finished up my drugs and I went back to their house again, feeling like a failure, um, but willing to try this thing again. And I kicked again, cold turkey this time, because there was no rehab that could take me in at that time. Went to rehab. My only goal this time getting sober was to get 61 days sober, because I knew, that I had gotten 60 days before, and I had tried before. And people a lot of times ask, what was different that time, or what made it stick, or anything like that. And I couldn't tell you. It literally felt like another time I thought I was gonna fuck up again. Like I had planned for that. I didn't know that I could not fuck up. And I just told myself I was going to do 61 days, and I was going to do anything that I could to get to that point. I'm not saying that works for everybody, but I can tell you that once I got to the 61st day, I reevaluated and I said, okay, let's try 90. And I mean, they give you these chips and stuff, as kind of denoting time, lengths of time. Once I had 90 days, I had a job by that point, and I told myself that I was going to stay sober until I got benefits at my job, so that way I could go to rehab, when I eventually fuck up. So that became my goal, and then I had about 6 months, or a little over that, and then I got the benefits of my job, and I remember feeling like, oh shit, like I've had an apartment that I haven't lost yet. I am getting friends again. My parents don't I mean, they still didn't trust me by that point, but I didn't really give them a reason to. Um, but yeah, and I started seeing the benefits of staying sober, and then it became this thing that was just like, you know what, I'm good. I'm with this. And everybody has difficulties, I believe. I think everybody's doing the best they can, and I think that we're all struggling in some way. Maybe not, profoundly at every single moment, but I think there's something we're all trying to work on, right? Um, so the first year, I felt like it wasn't even that difficult to stay sober, just because I was trying to learn something new every day, and I met all these wonderful people, and I was learning lessons, and I was practicing meditating and praying, and doing all these different things. And these are some things I had tried before, right? And I had tried during my addiction, but I was able to do them on a consistent basis, and I started seeing real benefits. Meditation is a keystone of my life today. Um, I do it all the time. I actually now have, my meditation teacher certification, and I'll talk more about that once I get to, I guess, present day. But I went through the first, few years, just whatever it takes to get sober, right? And just learning, and just trying to be open to this new way of living, and trying to forget the old ways that I was living, because it didn't get me anywhere. I actually had to serve jail time sober, for the past things that I did. I had a revoked license for a year, and it was during that year I learned a lot of how to ask for help. I always had this mindset that, you know, um, I got myself into this mess. I got to get myself out, and that's kind of what led me to being in this huge pit that I just dug for myself. I kept thinking I'd dig myself out, but I was never able to. And people would try to help me. They throw ropes down, and what I would do is just light the rope on fire and tell them to fuck off. and to the point where nobody was willing to help me because I didn't know how to climb up, and I didn't want to ask them how to. Um, but I started learning to, through all the people that I learned from, through the stories that I heard. Um, it made a great impact, and I learned to ask for help, and I learned that I want to have a community, I want to have friends, I want to have people in my life that love me. I started rebuilding relationships. I started doing all the things that that the program gives us. Um, Fast forward, I had multiple mentors over the years. I had multiple jobs, sales mostly in Arizona. There's a lot of call center jobs, sales jobs, office jobs, types like that, and I fit in well there. But I was so stuck. For anyone that does that as a job, by the way, that's listening, my hat's off to you, dude. It drained me for sure, and it was something that I became unable to do. I was still doing that. I actually ended up meeting another girl while I was, in sobriety. We dated for about 4 years. Um, Learned a lot, being with her. She actually ended up relapsing about 2 years in, and that became pretty tumultuous. It became, not good, but I always, again, it was always imparted in me to stick by the person. And I did that, but I continued to work on myself like I had known. And through a process of working on myself, I learned that being with somebody who's actively shooting heroin is probably not in my best interest, right? And there's a lot that goes on with that. I started realizing how much that I put my family through, I put my friends through. All the nights, getting a call in the middle of the night from somebody saying that your loved one, your girlfriend, is in the hospital due to an overdose, and they don't know if they're gonna live, is a it's a pretty traumatic experience, right? And I can imagine now how much I put my family through, how many nights my mom stayed up waiting to get that call, right? Or waiting to get the call that I was in jail, or for years. I it changed my perspective, right? Going through this with that other person. And I was a willing participant, right? I kept thinking, even though I knew better and everybody would say there's nothing you can do for this person. There's nothing in general that we can do for, we can't change anybody. We can't make anybody do what we want. But there was like I kept thinking of the 1% chance that I could, make a difference in this person's life. And eventually I separated myself. And to the best of my knowledge, she got sober a few months after I left. And she ended up getting married and doing all this wonderful stuff. So, it was a matter of learning, when and how to help. And also, what was best for myself? What was I doing for me? I had no one else is going to take care of me. I have to do it. And so I did. And I left that, and I was working as an insurance agent, which I didn't like doing. But I was providing for us and all this stuff. Fast forward a little bit. I've had a friend for my adult life. She's a wonderful person who lives in Sweden. And I'd always thought in my head, like, oh man, maybe someday I'll go there, But it always seemed out of reach. There was all these things that I told myself were just out of reach, right? So I built up this momentum. I'd been taking care of myself. By this time, I was caffeine free, nicotine free. I hadn't been on drugs for years. Um, a lot of positive changes, a lot of things I've been doing for myself. And I hit her up and I was like, dude, how would you feel if I came out there? And she's like, you have a place to stay here. She talked to her family. They were more than happy to have me out there. I was like, okay. So I bought my plane tickets and I went out there, right? First time I've ever gone abroad. First, it was a huge thing. Um, and while I was there, after the first week I was there, I was only supposed to be there 2 weeks. I called my boss here and I told them I quit. So I quit my job as an insurance agent because I knew that for one thing I wanted to stay there longer, and two, I didn't want to come back to that job. I'm not one to really make super impulsive decisions. That was more just I'd been draining my soul for multiple years and I was done with it. I wanted to do something more. I didn't know what it was. I just told myself I'm not doing that shit again. And so I came back. Instead of staying 2 weeks, I stayed a month there. And I came back, and uh, I ended up having to move rather quickly. and that's fine. And I cashed out my 401k, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna figure out something else to do. So I find this place, and I start pursuing a career in, streaming video games or just doing whatever, just trying to explore what the fuck I want. I knew it wasn't, call centers. And during that time, I actually ended up meeting another girl. Her name was Maria, and she was incredible. She was so supportive of me, and I of her, right? And we were exploring all this together. She had more time sober, and than the previous girl, and yeah, we started doing that, and I ended up going through financial troubles, and and ended up getting a job at a call center just for a month. Right, I knew that there was a light at the end of the tunnel. I knew that I wasn't really taking a step backwards. No matter how much I told myself I can never do that again, I knew I needed to pay rent, right? And so I did that, and then I ended up finding other opportunities, and I had opportunities to travel and work and different business ventures that didn't pan out, right? But I continued to be around people and learn and grow, and I actually ended up having another old friend hit me up. Excuse me, let me take a sip. He worked at a treatment center of all places, right? And there's a kind of a cliche in the treatment world, like when you go to rehab, you're like, oh, I'm gonna do that someday. I want to help these people. I never really wanted to do that, but he said that I would do great at it. So I took him up on it. I had been working as a server at a vegan restaurant, which I loved. I loved not working in a call center. I loved all the people that were there. Everyone was doing yoga. Everyone meditated. There was a lot of good, positive people there. The customers, the coworkers. I got to eat better than I'd ever eaten before, and I started valuing that. I started wanting to take care of myself physically, because I'd already been taking care of meditation and seeing a therapist on a regular basis, and a lot of these things that helped me take it to the next level. So I left that place because this was more lucrative, and I wanted to do something different, right? So I started working in treatment. I was an admissions person, so I was the person that everyone talked to. I was the person that helped triage things. I was the person that when families were in crisis, their kid just ended up with a DUI like I had, and they were trying to get their person in jail, or the person that says, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. I want help. Trying to help that person, right? And what I realized was I love talking to people. I love connecting with people, and like I had for years, and I was getting paid to do it here, so I didn't mind being on call literally any time. Um, I enjoyed being able to have deep conversations. I enjoyed being able to be myself in these conversations, right? I didn't have a script. There was no script. I could say fuck on the phone. I could tell somebody about my drug use or my history, and it was encouraged, right? If my boss listened to it, they were happy that I was connecting with people. There was no time limit either on these calls. All these things that I really liked. And no one likes paperwork, and no one likes the working for somebody, right? But I did that for a few years, and then that kind of led us to 2020, right? Which, if you hear that word, I feel like for the rest of history, that's going to mean something to everyone. And I don't think the first thing that comes to people's minds is going to be 2020 vision. I think it's going to be this year. um, March hits. I'm living with this other roommate who's a wonderful guy. He's actually featured on I guess it would be podcast number 3, Rue. Um, has been such a positive person in my life. I'm still dating Maria. We've traveled all over the world. We've been to, not abroad, but we have been to Canada and Mexico, and we've gone on meditation retreats, and we've gone to Chicago and seen my family, and it's been a journey, right? We've been together for multiple years now, and COVID hits in March. And actually, about that time, Maria ended up relapsing, and she passed away from an overdose in May. And that was a lot, right? This person that I've loved more than anybody, and I'll probably talk about her a lot on here. And I know, if you've followed any stories or anything that I have on social media, it's something that comes up a lot. I could spend a whole hour just talking about her, but that was a lot. It changes your perspective. When you lose someone close to you, it changes the way you look at this life. Um, so that happens, and then a month later, I'm let go from this job that I've had, due to multiple things, due to COVID, due to also just I wasn't there for that job anymore. I started asking myself, what the fuck am I doing? You know, um, and so where I was on all these different paths, suddenly a bunch of trees fell and blocked them off. You know, I'd always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to travel, I wanted to go abroad, and Maria was supportive of it, and I was supportive of her too. But we both, I'll speak for myself. I valued her more than I valued any experiences. Right? I found somebody that loved me unconditionally, and I don't say that lightly. I mean literally loved me unconditionally, and I wanted that. I'd been looking for somebody to really understand me my whole life, right? I'd been wanting to be heard. I'd been wanting to be vulnerable, but always scared. And this person I could be myself with, and likewise. And that's why, we're such good travel partners and everything. So so she's gone, my job's gone. I don't have really any, I mean, I don't have a family, right? My family lived in across the 3,000 miles away. I don't have any kids. I don't have a wife. I don't have a house, right? So I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna go. And I sold all my stuff. And I destination like final destination being Sweden, at least for right now, this step of the journey. I'm seeing all the people that I care about in the U.S. Right? I went and saw friends in California and Washington, and I saw family in Oklahoma and Ohio, and that's where I currently am. I'm in a room at my parents' house, and who I have a deep relationship with now. Right? They love me, and they see the changes that I've done. I've been sober almost 8 years now, and I've rebuilt, and I've made this relationship even closer. Right? We're even closer than we've ever been, and I value that. And these are things that I care about. When you think about death, when you think about what you want to do, the final gift that Maria gave me was a book, and it was called A Year to Live. It's by Stephen Levine. It's this Dharma teacher that works with a bunch of people in like hospice and everything, and he's been there with people that had literally a few months or a year to live, and he talks about what they valued and what they wish they'd done, or what people that were satisfied were glad they'd done. I knew that traveling was always a thing I wanted, and also a partner. Well, I had that, and now that these things are all gone, I realize I want to just connect with people. I think that we are all students and we are all teachers. I think that everybody has something of value, and I want to hear that. I've learned that I love talking to people. I I love connecting, and I think a lot of other people do too. And I want people to be with me on this journey, right? To hear people's stories, to learn, to grow, to spread this love, to figure out a little bit more of this life. I think that I'm kind of going with what I said I was originally going to talk about, why I do this. I'd had this idea for a podcast for a while, but always felt like it was never going to be doable. And now I don't even give a fuck how many people listen to it. I'm doing what I want to do. If you ask me what I would do with a year left to live, I'd be doing exactly what I'm doing right now. And I mean that. I got rid of all my stuff in Arizona and, sold my car, all that. And I'm just traveling. I have my whole life packed into 2 bags. And I don't feel afraid about that. I still have fear, but I don't have fear about that. I know that this is it. Because I've been in these places, I've been in these dark places, and I think that helps guide us, right? I've been homeless before, so what does it matter if I have these possessions or not? It's all fleeting. I've had jobs where I was trying to save up to get a house and stuff, and I didn't want that. So let's try this. If you do something different and you don't like it, at least you know something else you don't like, right? I don't see any real downside. I'm going to be going back to Sweden with this family that truly loves and supports me, and they want to do everything that they can to help me out. And so I got my meditation teacher training. I'm actually doing a yoga teacher training right now. Um, I'm looking to potentially do life coaching, and this podcast. And I just want to meet and and like love on people and share this energy with everybody. You know, from everyone I've talked to, when I said this is what I was gonna do, I got nothing but support. You know, whereas other times in my life where with different people that I've known, they were like, "Oh, what are you gonna do for money?" or blah blah. What are you gonna do for this? I haven't gotten that. Everyone was just like, go. You know, obviously things are in a really weird spot right now with COVID. Um, but I think that makes this even more appropriate of a time, right? To share what I figured out and to share what I'm still learning. I am by no means a guru or anything. I think that again, we're all students and we're all teachers. So if I can share anything for anybody, I want them to know they're loved, and I want them to know that, you know, regardless of where you're at right now, that's not all there is, right? I know that if you're in that spot and you hear someone say that, you can think they're full of shit, and that's fine too. I can relate with all the above, and I want to just relate with people. So I want to interview people that inspire me. I want to interview homeless people. People have been where I've been. I think that they all have something that they can teach us if we're willing to learn. I think that pretty much, I don't know how long it's been, it doesn't really matter. I think that's a good idea about who I am. So I invite you um, to continue with me on this journey. I think the next one I have posted is going to be Devin, who's a old friend and sponsee. More than that, just a great friend of mine. And then my roommate Rue. And then I'm going to be putting these things out every week, at least for the time being. I want to continue. I want to get all different types of people. I want to get, you know, people with all different backgrounds and see what cool things they're doing, right? See how they see the life. See what they can teach all of us. So if that's something that you know speaks to you or inspires you, I just ask you come with me, and feel free to contact me. I'm open to speak with each and every other person. I don't have, you know, I do have things that keep me busy, but I always have time for people. I always make time for people. So with that, I appreciate you listening. I love you, whoever you are. I do. And I'm going to call that here. Thank you.